Lights, camera, action.
Okay, lights, camera, action. Let's get the, maybe I should get prepared first. My agenda here. Okay, let's do the call to order. That's the call to order and a pledge of allegiance. Notification. Here to steer.
Allegiance to the flag of America, the republic for which it stands,
Nation. God. With liberty. Right.
Yes, I will scoot down a bit. Okay, Steve.
Yeah,
I'm way down here.
come on down. Yeah, I don't know if Wendy, did we get a call from Wendy? Notification? Maybe she's just running late.
Traffic is pretty bad.
Down.
I don't recall. I feel like I got a call from somebody, but
Mary Rose sent an email.
that must be
We know she's not gonna be here. She's up. Yeah, she's went down to St. Croix, I think, for her birthday today.
Sweet.
her.
So she's gonna be living it up there.
We're sitting there going, man, I could be sitting in a council chamber.
In a government building. Okay, so that's open space landscaping. All right, so let's get this show on the road. Will be a action-packed agenda as always. Let's start with the roll call. Start with to the left there with you. In a second.
Rose Larkin, present.
Jennifer Rusk, present.
Fossum present. Johnson present.
Robert Howell, present. Each council liaison present.
Statute staff. Myers Beach.
Okay, excellent. First on the agenda here is approve the agenda. Any motions to approve the agenda?
The minutes.
We're on the agenda first.
I mean, the agenda, I'm sorry. Minutes when we get to it.
Got a second?
Click on that.
Okay. Any discussion? Position? Motion carries unanimously. Now we can approve the previous meeting minutes. A motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
At the right time.
I'll second that. Any corrections? Objections? Motion carries unanimously. Boom. We're on to 6 already. Public comment? No?
This is gonna
Maybe
drag
Eva?
on.
No? Okay. Carry on there. Now we're on to 7. Look at that. Current items. First off, beach renourishment, starring Ed Schutz.
All right, so this is the latest and greatest from the engineer. As you can see up there, it has draft on it. Just gonna take it sitting down from right here, if that's all right with everyone.
I'd like you
Feel
to
free
stand.
to interrupt me if you have any questions during. I will do my best to answer, but I will remind everyone that I am not an engineer. There's the project location. This is the beach renourishment. Helpful to get your bearings with the R monuments, how the state marks the locations for references. Start up at 174 or 125, 174, and it wraps around. The previous project went down to 182, which is around Canal Street. This project is proposing to place sand all the way down. Yep, this project is proposing to place sand all the way down to approximately Narc. The open beach area, which called Holiday Inn Beach. We have a low-lying area. Have the CWA down here. Our 204, I don't know if anyone's been around there lately. It is loaded again at last Halloween storm front. So again, it's about 30 feet away from the building. We're working with FDEP to see if there's any solutions And I think they spent around $14,000 in sand after Elsa. Lion's share of that's eroded away. They're
It wasn't planted or anything, correct? That was just,
no, actually they did spend a lot of money on plantings, but fairly close to the wave action, so that's not a panacea. Actually just a new plantings like that. The previous project performed well. In 2011, it was a Lee County sponsored project. April to December of 2011, placing approximately 403,000 cubic yards and constructing a terminal groin to try and hold sand island.
A question about that at that end.
Sir,
Why don't they extend that jetty out further? They just dredged it, what, last year at the end of Bowditch? And the current and everything just keeps, it's coming right back where it was. I've just always been curious, why don't they extend the jetty there to capture some of that?
Groin? Out of the rocks?
Yeah, yeah,
The term is a groin.
right, okay.
I remember, I think one of the reasons I put that in years ago, my understanding was not to accumulate sand, but to keep sand from filling in the channel.
on the island, on the channel.
It does a wonderful job.
Well, there's a lot of sand on the channel side of that groin now. Put it in, there was nothing there.
Okay. But I'm just thinking, so the way that it looks like to me, so you got the end of the island, and the sand's coming around and filling in out into the channel. I know we're trying to get off, I don't mean to get off topic too much, I was just curious if it's a similar situation with, but if they just extended that out into a jetty, so it's a long, big rock, wouldn't it capture some of that to keep it from going into the channel?
There may have been some permitting limitations. Again, I'm
Okay.
not a coastal engineer, so I don't have the answer, but
And also I'll just kind of comment too, because actually these groins are all up and down the island.
Yeah.
When we have a big storm event, like after Tropical Storm Debbie, you saw them popping up like Coconut, Hercules, that area. They're all over the place, but just they're covered with sand. The other thing that happens a lot is that we have sand migration patterns that are all over the map. Down generally south, but sometimes they're going other ways. When you put one of those groins out, you tend to accumulate sand on one side and scour it on the other. So depending on what's going on, depends on what kind of effect it has.
Okay.
And it's pretty variable.
I'm just curious of that, because we're trying to put, because it looks the way that it flows, it would add sand to the north end of the island on the south side of where we want sand, essentially, and it would keep it from going into the channel.
I can ask the engineer and get back to you.
Neither am I. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you.
hey, not to interrupt you, I was just notified that we're not on YouTube yet.
With that.
You read lips?
Gotcha.
So,
repeat?
just to familiarize everyone with what's going on with the red lines, the blue lines. Earlier, we have the red line is the erosion control line, so that is the mean high water line, 6 months or sooner. The previous project, so back in sometime within 6 months of April 2011, they surveyed the mean high water line. That became the erosion control line for the project.
Now, the project did not put sand in that the length of that.
Correct. Have the mean high water line for 2021, which is the blue line. So the borough area is where we're going to be taking sand from. Permitted back in 2011, we're going to be reusing that again. It has approximately 1 million cubic yards still left in it, so plenty to the beach for at least the initial fill. Pink lines are pipeline corridors, which have recently been surveyed for any cultural resources that either the agency or the engineers.
And boats, sunken,
Apparently there's a
Aliens.
barge somewhere right around here outside the borough area.
Made.
There's areas within there where they get some kind of metallurgy. Don't know what it is, they just stay away from it. don't know, could be a sunken boat, could be a
Probably a UFO.
natural.
Be a torpedo, unexploded torpedo.
You can see the 2021 mean high water is an elevation. Get how it jets out, and that's from benefiting from that U.S. Army Corps maintenance dredging project, beneficial use, placing about 124,000 cubic yards the near shore. That's why that line is jutting out right there.
And hey, Shannon, based on that, sorry, I was a little bit distracted. So the renourishment's only gonna go down to Lanark, are you saying?
So
Yeah, right there. Yep. That one.
the renourishment, what we've asked FDP, so all of this shoreline here till I believe it's around R200 is designated as critically eroded, more or less. And then I think the designation picks up again at R203, designated critically eroded to around R208, I believe. Looking at the monitoring data, this area in between there is slightly erosional over a long-term period. We are asking FDEP to designate that as critically eroded as well. What that does is qualifies us for state funding. Two major criteria for state funding is A, is it critically eroded, and B, public access. So if it's not critically eroded, up right there, it is critically eroded, then the amount of state funding depends on the amount of public access. Full pages of statute to answer your question. The current project extends from Bowditch all the way down to WA. Now, because this area doesn't necessarily need a bunch of sand along the mean high water line, we're proposing to just place sand, either place sand in the low-lying area or maybe push sand to create a positive gradient. So
Now, I know you said about pushing sand down on the southern end, but the Holiday Inn area, sand, you're gonna create like a little bay, aren't you?
we're, from talking to the engineer, we're permitting both options, keep our options open. So I'll leave it to the, which is best in how. These drawings, these cross sections are showing the beach. The red line is how it currently looks. Profile. The design beach, so he's more or less putting about 75 feet of beach as the design, and that's he's run it through a modeling study to account for, I believe, a 25-year design storm event. How much beach do we need for a storm? About a storm reduction analysis, that effect. Shoreline change analysis. So they put it through their software, model it, and they come out with a certain amount of beach that they feel is adequate to benefit a storm. And then they add an additional here, I believe it's about 100 or so feet. That is to account for 10 years of erosion. They know they've been monitoring the beach. So they put the erosion rate and they account for how much erosion is going to happen over 10 years. We want this beach to be at the design 10 years from now. Therefore, we need to account for that 10 years of erosion on the front end. We put the additional sand out there so that in 10 years from now, we haven't done a renourishment yet, but we get a big storm, we still have that storm reduction benefit.
Well,
So he plotted out, different cross-sections for the north, typical cross-sections for the north, typical cross-sections for the central. Here is that low-lying area, and you'll see this 1 to 200, that is the slope. There's an FDP agreed upon, positive slope, beneficial for sea turtles. It's that low-lying area getting there.
I'd like to hear what you guys think about this Holiday Inn patch. And they also, Chad mentioned at the south end of the island, they're looking at taking and moving it from or inland, because right now there's ponds close to the condos, and there's high sand really rapidly down.
Talking about Holiday Inn Beach?
The Holiday Inn Beach, filling that to give a positive slope. There would be requirements for, I assume, even if it isn't out into the Gulf, Chad, there's still requirements for dune lines.
Yeah, I believe anything that TDC is going to be putting money in, Lee County Master Plan requires vegetative plantings. We following the managed beach zone document that we used last time, where I believe it's 75% of the width of the property must be vegetated, and approximately, I believe it's 15 feet deep. All right.
Would that also be in the south part if you were used to?
If we can we save the south end for a different conversation, because it's not within this project, and the funding be different. I would assume if public funds were going into it, yes.
When you say make a bay there, potentially of having like a pond, right? Is that what you're talking about? How they could move the sand enough so there'd be like a pond there?
Well, I don't know if you remember, I was just
Yeah.
down there to.
And it floods pretty regularly there.
Yes, right now it's
Right.
flooded. So that,
Are they
the
wanting
idea,
to-
one proposal he just said, and for some, is actually you just take the sand that's on the, and you move it in so that the shoreline would actually go in there.
So,
Or it'd be
Well,
shallow.
in that case, though, we wouldn't be, we'd only be pushing sand landward of the mean high if there's enough sand in the system to create that. You wouldn't be changing the contour of the shoreline.
it already floods there pretty regularly. Would it make it so it's more or less likely to flood there?
Yes, it'd be creating a positive gradient. If you can see right here, so the red line is the current state where you have this dip and it comes back up. You can see the mean high water line is right here. So this sand, the question is two different options. Option one, we're dredging in from the borough area, pump sand and fill in this low-lying area right here to create a 1 to 200 slope. That second option, and it's dependent on whether or not there's enough sand in the system, push it, create the slope without having to pump any sand in there. I believe it's $20 a cubic yard for pumping versus somewhere between $3 and $7 to push it.
Is that area considered critically eroded?
That's what we are asking FDP to reclassify it as critically eroded, so we can qualify for funding.
Isn't that the area where the condo people would like to have a walkover?
Different area.
Oh, okay.
This is all, as you can see, it's this area right here.
Okay.
It's underwater right now. Last washover, so
Where's the area where the people?
it's still further down south.
When you go from there, you get to the critical wildlife area, which is eroding pretty rapidly. Then you get to a point where it's accreting rapidly. Right between those points is where that.
Okay.
Tell you, I have some real reservations about this. And one of the reasons is that because, it's been done some time ago. Well, I've been told, it's been some. The other issue I have I appreciate the addition of the dune plants, and that would solve some problems that we have. It would define the turtle nesting habitat within those dunes, and so the conflict we'd have with equipment and some other things, the landward side of there would kind of be alleviated. The problem I have is that if you put a line of dune plants in there, even without them, but certainly with them, probably, and you're raking behind it, it's gonna take one wind event. It's gonna build up sand where those dune plants are and create a dam, back where you were fairly quickly. With the dune plants, I just see that becoming a dam.
I
Without,
think-
to a degree.
I think the preference, what I'm hearing from owners is the preference is gonna be to plant the plants fairly close to their condos. I don't think they're going to put it in the middle. Would alleviate.
Even, but a berm also builds up on the beach side.
They have a rake in that area?
Do rake, and then to address the berm, concern and damming, et cetera, we are including a maintenance, rating throughout the life of the project to maintain that design slope.
If the dune plants are put up closer to the buildings, that means the whole beach would be to those dune plants.
Has this area ever been successfully made to drain properly, like with other projects?
There was a project in Marco Island that had Marco Island's a fairly wide beach and had similar ponding issues that residents didn't like, and for years, Collier County was able to permit, moving beach anywhere from, I believe, 200 feet, that sand, bring it up on the beach to create that positive slope. So, but it's from here all the way down to the tail end, basically to the bridge, that same effect, whether it's vegetated or unvegetated. You have a high berm and lying area and or lagoon. Nature of the dynamics for Southwest Florida Beach.
Now, yeah, because I think if you look at what's going on in other places along the beach, they didn't rake it, they left it natural, there might even be a lagoon. There's
a lagoon there right now.
Well, at the point now I forgot what it was. I think that the kind of erosion, I understand, when I was down there, it was, it hasn't rained in a few days, but there's, all the guests are having to, all the people from the condos and stuff are wading through water, quite a ways to get to the beach.
Some high tides.
But I would think that, I consider like quickly eroded where it's taking away like valuable habitat or risking structures, which this doesn't seem to be doing. Although I know Leonardo Arms some time ago, when there was a lagoon there, they had to put up sandbags. Because the current from lagoon go too far, it may threaten some. My understanding was, and I just heard this from somebody who's been around a while, they did this probably 20 years ago, longer. I guess they got 20 years out of it, maybe.
Questions?
Comment, it sounds like the whole renourishment from top, from end to end is only a 20-25 year plan, and it's gonna need more sand in another 20-25 years, so.
It's a 10-year plan, and the life of the permit's 15 years. We may be able to extend that another 15 years. I'm not sure. I believe that's what I heard from the FDF. It's definitely a 15-year permit. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, all the sand renourishment is not a permanent fix.
Sand is considered sacrificial, which Leonardo Arms is painfully aware of.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not gonna do a permanent structure, you have to put up with doing this every 20 years.
I do think, another thing that comes up too, in this area is, an area where I think it's applicable is that it's a whole lot of area with no vegetation at all. And when you rake that area, the surface blows away and down low it gets really hard. That's what I've heard from like the turtle nesting, was that, underneath the rake sand, it's hard and difficult for the turtles to nest in. So I would, and I don't know if we have the ability to, we're going to support this aspect is to require more vegetation than, and I would also think down near that, building 1 of Leonardo Arms, they do have vegetation, and it's a prescribed amount of vegetation, but that's like, after that, you're right on the building. And the sand is right up against it, and at the last storm, there's quite a bit of erosion down there now. So, and it wasn't really even a storm in a lot of ways, just wind.
Oh, right, also it's just a tropical storm.
What would it take to turn that whole area just into like a bunch of dunes?
Oh, yeah, you'd have to get the cooperation of the property owners.
Yeah, but I mean, are they
You put the
utilizing
sand.
it for anything?
Sorry?
Are they utilizing it for any like recreational stuff or other than just?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big recreational tourist beach, and those property owners like it nice and wide open.
Okay.
So from my perspective, I see it as a tourist beach. Manage it as a tourist beach. Let's make it as enjoyable as possible. I understand the vegetation there. There has been a lot of pushback in the past, from what I understand, to putting any vegetation there. So from my perspective, for beach management, getting, and if it's minimal according to the beach management zone, that amount of vegetation would be a win for me. Not going to be the wide dunes that we have right here. That's if we the alternative of trying to say we're not going to do this unless you put 100 feet of dunes or 50 feet of dunes, we're not going to pump any sand there. They're probably going to say, okay, well, thanks and have a great day.
I guess that's kind of my point. What is their ideal outcome? Like, what do they want it to look like? Because right now they can't utilize it because there's a lagoon there.
I can't speak for them. What I'm hoping is that they'll be amenable to the managed beach zone description of 75% of the width of their property wide.
I'm just thinking, kind of proportionality. So we do 75% from one axis, and then we do a fixed number of feet on the other. And if you have 100 feet of beach, 15 feet is one thing. If you have 500 feet of beach, smaller. If you have a structure like Leonardo Arms, 15 feet they have now is really not providing adequate protection. They stick out further than anybody else. The kind of question is that Leonardo Arms has that pier. And I'm not sure if that would be an obstruction when they're doing the renourishment, because when they did it 12 years ago, pump all the sand out, and then they get trucks and they keep moving it around and pulling it and compressing it. And having a structure out there seems like it'd be.
We're able to do it, the beneficial use nourishment. So
they'd be able to keep that, even though it'd be 100 feet of sand.
well, it'll have 100 feet of sand in front of it. I don't think it'll be 100 feet of sand on top of it.
No. Well, not, now anyway. Being buried, it seems like even though the shoreline's moving closer to it, the sand is getting deeper where it is.
They are having to maintain it, as
underground.
you can see out there today. So moving on to this R204, which is at Leonardo Arms. Again, you have the design beach. I believe they added a bit more design, if I recall correctly, maybe 75 feet to 125 feet. Because of the dynamics of the way the island's shaped, it is much more erosional in that area. I mean, this is the place of the island that definitely needs this closest spot where the Gulf is closest to the structure at R204.
There's another aspect of it too, because right now, critical wildlife area, if it's state land, then you get state funding. There's a court case where some property owners are trying to claim theirs, not the state's. So if that passes, if they win, then that means that there's funding land, because there's not a lot of public access down there either.
Yeah, I mean, so that area is right here. This is Texas Hold'em Squeeze Me In. They were proposing a boardwalk kind of on this southern end of the CWA. Miss Rose, to earlier you were asking, so it's right here, these two
That's
properties.
actually not within the CWA though.
Right on the edge. I believe the CWA is in front of their properties to some degree.
The design was a diagonal, I think. Actually doesn't touch the CWA, just FYI, I believe.
Design, correct.
I'm not sure how the determination of who owns the land in the UA.
Maybe I think
Right,
that's
so-
ready to be litigated, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be litigated sooner than later. So right now, staff was able to work with FDEP staff to get DEP staff to agree to, this is CWA, it's state lands, ownership, landward of the mean high, treat it like a state park. We would get 100% construction funding from FDEP, if that's the case. And that comes to about $7 million in change. So if the CWA happen to cease, if the CWA ceases to exist, these landowners would lose state funding theoretically in perpetuity, tune of $7 million every time they needed sand. Either have to rely on public access or paying for it privately, or the town paying for it, or some combination thereof. Decision coming up.
Yes.
And this just shows the borough area. I believe that these were some magnetic anomalies. I'm not sure what's happened. Those, if the engineers have worked out, and I believe they put divers in the water, and been some more recent studies, those magnetic anomalies, but this is the one that's closest corridor. I'm putting it to the closest spot on the beach. And there's the one that's going down south, great shot, to re-nourish that area.
Those are the pipe locations you're saying, right?
Yes, sir.
I guess it's easier to use the same borough area than it is to find a place with a shorter pipeline run.
Right, yeah, I did research and ask about there's a borough area. Island shot. There is a borough area, I believe it's right here. It may tell it this resolution, but you can see kind of a clear cut where that Lee County used, I believe, for Lover's Key. I'd asked about that, but the thing is there's not enough sand in that. And again, and
If everything goes as planned, when would the nourishment start?
see, I don't have the timeline on me. I believe we're submitting this month is the promise from our engineers. So permitting takes about a year to a year and a half. I believe in the first or second quarter of 2023. Back to you. It really is going to depend on permitting and how quickly that gets out, and availability of dredgers at the time when we go out to bid. Whether or not we want to do it during full season or hurricane season. And They are allowed to be nourished during sea turtle season. It's permittable, so it's an option, but most fish managers who deal with renourishment, hurricane season, storms are the real concern, disrupting operations.
One thing during sea turtle season I understand is that you're not permitted to move nests going on. They can actually allow them to perish if they need to, and to be able to determine the, you know, the results of the, but it's kind of a crazy thing, but.
Well, like if they put a nest and then you put another 100 feet of sand out there, and when the nest is laid and when they hatch.
Right, or, yeah, like I said, or if it's too close to the edge of the water, I don't know if they allow you to actually add sand on it. I don't think that's the case, but. Oddity.
They typically move the nest during a nourishment if we're sand in there.
I don't know, I'm telling you, I don't think you can, as I can recall from the last time. Odd, because they just have to, you know, again, you have to just take the mortality to prevent from changing the mortality statistics from the event.
We have 11 months of people anyway, so.
Oh, yeah, 11, yeah. 11's a good number. Okay, thanks, Chad, that was great. I think that brought us up to speed. We get questions on it all the time. So if everybody's prepared, let's move it to exotic vegetation. And I'll turn the
You
floor
folks
over to Rose.
hopefully all got the steering document number 3.
You did. Great, thank you very much.
We're on, well, actually the visual record of Google Earth is still in progress. I talked to those people today. They're still working on it. Not a priority, so, but they still are volunteering to do that. Notification to property owners. Last time we had discussed designing a link on the Fort Myers Beach Town website for property owners to access their information, and to finalize a draft of the disclaimer message. Not sure.
On those items, does it make sense actually to complete the vegetation ordinance before we notify them, or do you think that's important at all?
Probably, but, yeah, it'd be a good thing. Good point.
It would probably take that long anyway, but.
That's a good point. Then under public awareness, there's still that whole thing of adding vegetation information to the town of Fort Myers Beach. And then I had included putting in this handout from the University of Florida IFAS on vegetation. You know, originally it was like, oh, well, just create a PowerPoint, say plant this instead of that. But it's like there's so many invasive plants and there's already a lot of information out there, so it's like, why recreate the wheel that's already out there? So there's that information. Publicity, there have been vehicles in the local newspaper, which is the Beach Observer, for myself as well as Councilman Beach, and also back in July 7th, there was one on the 10th. From Jennifer, and there have been constant handouts and visual displays at the pop-up tent. One of our members, Jennifer Rusk, has discussed pop-up tent topics on the FBM radio talk show, and then she's also gone out and talked to various groups. And then include flyers. Well, so part of me is like, well, why don't we just put some of the flyers out there that are already created, possibly in the front lobby where they show native landscaping and they already have the plans and they do all this wonderful stuff. I gave one to all of you. It's like, you know, we don't need to recreate the wheel. There's all this wonderful stuff out available. It's like, A, we could put this on our website because that's one of the things listed on the solutions. And then B, could we just have some of these flyers and some other information out there on that little lobby area.
Like where they, I mean, they had the
Or-
shades brochure out there too. But do we have access to these? I mean,
Yes, I now have a box of like 100 of them in my trunk because
okay,
I got tired of asking for them. So yes,
good. I think that's a problem, is it, Chad?
that's a possibility.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
So that is a concern, if we can do flyers in the lobby. And there's also some of the other flyers on, 2 other flyers, I think, on sort of wildflowers and butterflies or whatever. And then there's the vegetation plan. Which is 18 suggestions. This is from a small, my little subcommittee, which consisted of 1 Esther Gardner volunteer and 1 Estero Island garden member. And we reviewed ordinances from Treasure Island, Sanibel, Bonita Springs, Naples, and Marco. And looked at some of those other previous things, and we came up with these 18 points. Although, if people agree to number 2, then that kind of eliminates number 12 and 13. So that's kind of a reduction. So then there would only be 16 suggestions. The top 3 on the first page are the ones that are probably what we consider the most important. And then the rest of them are not in any sequential order. But the first one was really to add in enforcement and penalty, because right now people do stuff, whatever stuff is, and they do not, they don't follow the current codes within Fort Myers Beach. It's just like, oh, sorry, didn't do it, no big deal. So there needs to be an enforcement and penalty. That's probably our number 1 concern. Second one was that a lot of towns, not just Fort Myers Beach, but a lot of them just list of what should be classified as invasive and removed, and then another list of what should be prohibited. And it's like, why would you do that? If it's going to be one, it should be both. And if you just included a list from the University of Florida's IFAS website of what is an invasive plant, because it could change. I mean, what's invasive today might also be added tomorrow as another invasive plant. And if you just put that in there as part of the ordinance, then it would be a constantly updated process versus creating duplicate list. And actually, most of the towns have duplicate list. It's like, okay, we don't want this, and we need you to remove this, and then on the other hand, we don't want you to plant this. But it's like, well, that's just sort of redundant. It's just like, make it one list. You don't want this and you don't want this to, we want you to remove this if you're doing new construction, and we want you not to plant this. So if they decide to do number 2,
Maybe some of the weight comes down to, let's say you have a Propeller in your house, so as opposed to saying you can't plant another one, you have to remove one when it's there. You know what I mean?
I don't think we can do that now, right? To come through and tell them they have to remove those.
yeah, it'd be under the new construction, which would probably be the
Right.
next thing down, number 3. But right now, it's like,
Actually, before we move along, I mean, what if we just took the category 1? I mean, I think there's 80 plants on there. The FLEPPC list. I don't know, how do they pronounce that acronym?
not sure.
Anyway, the question to Chad is, how would that be enforced if you actually had sort of a live list? That the getting the LDO or whatever, again, I guess we have to talk about that too, but plan development order would have to then access that to see what they can't do as opposed to what's actually in the ordinance. Do you keep a live list, or do you start with something like category 1? Because I doubt they ever remove one, right? I mean, if they make it to the Cat 1 list, then that's a nasty.
And maybe you have to have it in your ordinance,
You can't,
relying on it.
Right, and then you go every 5 years and you amend that list, which is pretty easy. I mean, you wouldn't have to
But-
change wording or anything.
Yeah, what I've seen is you reference the list as amended. So you can reference, category 1, invasive exotics as,
As amended, and
As
then still
defined
they'll
by the
provide
FLE.
the 19, or the 2019 list that's current. And it's their responsibility to look to see if that's been amended. Is that what you're suggesting? Okay, I like that.
and as far as how it would be enforced. So in the past, I've seen it where a neighbor complains and then therefore the burden is put on has it. That's troublesome. Another mode of enforcement that may be a little bit less being neighbor versus neighbor would be to just require whenever there is a permitted activity or changes in the previous area.
Right.
Perhaps have your permit to put all these pavers out. By the way, you need to remove all the exotics.
Right.
That is how FDEP deals with it on the CCCL end whenever there's a permitted activity. There's always a clause, remove all exotic vegetation. Or if there's an enforcement action,
Right.
taking out your dune. Okay,
Yeah, because we can't go back, I mean, we just can't, every tomorrow,
right.
you have to all those. And
No, this would be for new.
but I think, for everybody else's benefit, I think Rose's, the suggestions that she provided us are based on actually adjustments to our current ordinances, so not to come up and just try to start fresh, like we talked about last meeting.
Oh,
but
no, these
That
are
we,
just-
that we look at what we have, and, what's not in here, I mean, not to say I didn't, to cut you short here, because I have no objections really to any of these, I've got some questions, but one of the issues also is right now, it only applies to multifamily and, commercial resident, or, condos and commercial. So we would actually increase it to single family as well. That's not, I don't think that you guys addressed that here, did you, or,
There is a comment down here
there?
somewhere. Well, actually,
okay. Well, that goes, it almost goes without saying, I suppose, but I thought
there
I'd
is somewhere.
say, single family homes for sure. Okay, go ahead.
Just so you know, town council is working on two different things, or two different ideas. One involves like some kind of minimal vegetation standards. I'm trying to discourage everything out and put down rock.
Yep.
The other is about preserving view corridors. So they're kind of a conflict, and I'm not.
Yeah, I saw that actually. You guys have really talked about beach view and water view, which would appear to apply to only those that are, west of Estero Boulevard.
View corridors for riparian rights for beachfront properties or view corridors for traffic?
Question was, when people are driving down Stara Boulevard, they can look out and see the ocean.
Correct. It's all about the Gulf.
I think I don't think you necessarily make an ordinance that just applies to a subset of the population.
I don't know.
View corridor is impeded by the houses, isn't it?
That was another part of it, is to set the maximum amount of square footage under the house that you can close in, and that would be for every house.
Which currently does not exist, obviously, correct?
Currently, I don't think it exists.
I mean, clearly.
allowed to
on
use
any of
the
these
area?
New houses are boxes, and they have 8.5 feet or 10 feet on the side, and it's full of palms. Well, there's really not a view corridor there anyway, but I understand trying to.
And there's
Take
a
what
lot of
we have.
issues, because, if you can see the beach from the road, then the beach can see the road, which means lighting issues, spring season, turtle season, that kind of stuff. So
Exists now, though, obviously, yeah.
it does, but it would be,
I don't know, right? I mean, if you take down a cottage and you put down a huge block house, you know, big mansion, I'm pretty sure you're blocking a lot of the, I mean, picture Bonita Springs, right? Bonita Beach Road. It's a wall. Absolute wall.
Even with the restrictions as they are, the duplex alley, which is kind of between town and, you know, the Baptist church here, that's the oldest housing development, and they put up, there's duplexes, so I don't even think those limitations would affect those houses.
Yeah, I mean, that's a wall also.
That's something that we're grappling with the town council. I'm not sure how it's gonna play out yet.
Right, and those are looking more at minimal requirements. Meaning for the gravel landscaping.
The aspects are, you know, minimal vegetation, something to discourage rocks, people to put rocks. I don't think they're allowed to put down plastic now. Putting down the rocks, and then if they don't put down plastic, they spray it with Roundup all.
Yeah, I mean, but Council, Vice Chair Hosfrost had said, you know, the only way you could literally do that is to prevent them from enclosing the bottom of the house, I think, right? Because right now, if property has, you know, you can cut down anything that's within beneficial use area, which is literally side lot to side lot, right? And so if you're putting up right now, if that's the way it exists right now, then the only possible view corridor you have is between the homes and the side lots.
There's also, you know, as far as vegetation goes, the part of this is that limitations on what you can put down for vegetation, because if you made all the houses be open underneath and a lot of people put up hedges to block the view, you really haven't provided any kind of.
Right, right.
Should we put this on the next agenda and stay with
There's
exotic?
already in here, there's you know, there's in our existing ordinance, you have to put a hedge there to prevent lights from hitting the beach. I mean, that's what you're talking about, it's involved, to some degree. Again, that is west of Estero Boulevard.
So I think, you know, most of the, like, if you were to say, you know, you couldn't put any vegetation and you had to have
Use
most
the
of your
triple
house.
CL as a, that pretty much follows the Estero Boulevard. I mean, you could essentially use that as a delineation.
See, one thing we come with, you know, that you really come up with in it's like, there was the guy with the tuba, there was the downtown, there was the pirate who wants something. If you can't just write a rule for one person or a subset. I mean,
Thank you.
right? So it means, you know, if you were to raise your house, rules would apply and people could look at your pool. It's something we're talking about. I'm not sure where it's gonna go.
Exotic vegetation.
He's trying to steer us
Right.
back here.
Well, that's what prompted this whole thing, right? Is this, you know, prevention of allowing planting of invasives while we're trying to clean them up. You know, that's what brought us in, and I think Rose has done a fantastic job on this so far, in that she's picked out those areas that actually need those, you know, those updates. And I don't know if we, as a group, need to go through each one, collectively agree that, yeah, those are good additions.
Well,
Or
I
do
would
we-
like to look at 3, because that's like the other, you know, the top 3 were the first 3, and then the rest of them were just kind of
Improvements.
improvement. The third one, though,
Modernizations, I like to call them.
is the landscaping standards when there's new construction. And then once again, should it be defined as exterior decks, pools, whatever,
I
that
didn't understand that, actually.
do or do not.
I did not understand that. That was,
Because if it's new construction, like you have an empty lot or you tore down a facility or building.
any kind of permit, you're saying?
Yes, then
deal, I see.
should there be a whole new landscaping design? That would be for irrigation.
Well, to Chad's
And-
point, that would be an opportunity to say that, you know, if you're gonna do this, then what comes along with that is to land, you know,
Right, and then you
Get
go
rid of
back to
exotics,
number
maybe.
1, where you're back to, okay, if you don't do it, there's some.
right, punitive
enforcement.
actions, yeah.
And then 4 and 5 is just explanations, definitions, you know, it's like, as you go through our ordinances and other cities, it's like, just clarify and provide information. It's not like a tremendous deal.
Yeah, my question was, is that if this isn't referenced in any of the ordinance, does it make sense to put it in there?
Well, we could, but no other town has done that we reviewed, and
Right, it's just.
have other
makes
communities,
sense.
but
I mean,
it's
I'm
like,
not
if you
against
go
it,
through
it's-
our ordinances, you will see these terms. As a matter of fact, we added some of them in because they weren't in there.
They weren't in there, okay.
Um,
So just definition.
It was just to
purposes.
clarify definitions, even though you would think some of them were common sense.
Right,
It's, just kind of clarify what they are.
no objections to that.
On to 6. 6 is just kind of a friendly one. It's one of those things where it's people friendly, where you would add in something, clarify why you're doing it. We have it for the tree protection ordinance, but not for the general landscaping one.
Right.
7, this kind of needs to be adjusted, and we did not know even where to begin with that. It's like, it already says in our standards, there's a 50-foot buffer to be established between structures. Well, some of our lots don't allow for a 50-foot buffer, so it either needs to be a percent, or it needs to be, if your lot is X amount, then you can have a 50-foot buffer, and it's less than X amount, then you have to do a 20-foot or 30-foot buffer. That needs to be adjusted.
Right, that was one of my questions. Instead of using square footage, you need to use a percentage. Because any single family home there's no 50-foot buffer, period.
But yeah, and that's really going, and that originally came from the 50-foot buffer from coastal construction. But still, it's the lot size. We don't have
Lots are
huge
50
lots, so it's like
The lots are 50 feet wide or
That
60
needs
feet
to
wide. How could
be-
you have a 50-foot buffer? I mean,
adjusted. Number 8 was, we're still using the 78 coastal construction line. It uses 91, not sure. My example was, I took a class with coastal naturalist people, and there was some photos of the south end of the island, which we've talked about, that critical wildlife zone. It's like it didn't exist there 20 years ago. It wasn't even there 15 years ago. So it's like, why are we using something that seems to be outdated?
The 78 line is a zoning, to define a zoning district.
Right. It's like, maybe we possibly should consider updating that or looking at something else. Just a
what
consideration.
does that affect if we were to, I mean, is that something we could suggest? The benefit,
no.
is that
I'm not sure I understand the point of changing it. So the environmentally critical zone is basically defining the beach and dune area. It's the limit of where we would allow major structures.
isn't that the
houses.
91, isn't that what happened to this duplex?
1991 Coastal Construction Control Line is the state jurisdiction for CCL cities.
I'm just saying that whole
Different
section on the
definitions,
south
they're
end wasn't
different, they're
there in
just different
78.
Purposes.
Apples and oranges is different purposes.
So, yeah, but it needs to be looked at, not by me, but it needs to be looked at. Really, that when people have come up to me and talked about the Times Square area, documents for each species, protection, and it goes on for pages, like literally pages. Suggestion to possibly put that in town manager, administrator, throughout all of the documents, not,
I'm not the director.
okay. But it's like in person, that would be lovely. And then 17, this is from Marco, which we really liked, to create a tree fund, where if you do have penalties against people or people that would like to donate, there would be a tree fund where they could help assist the town in removing invasive trees. And then the last one would be the vegetation protection thing. There's already, in the town of Fort Myers Beach, there's already a tree protection section. It has specific guidelines on what to do and why we should do them, but it's not under vegetation, it's only under trees. So to kind of incorporate that and add another one into the vegetation.
So, duplicate what we have for trees for vegetation, or use the term vegetation?
I would duplicate it because they're two separate, they're two whole separate sections.
Sure.
So it would be basically to duplicate it, but change the wording to say all vegetation.
Okay,
It includes, shrubs and bushes.
okay.
Vegetation would you're protecting. I'm confused.
Thing, but
It
saying.
says vegetation protection. 18.
Right,
And
so if you
removal.
had mulberry bushes or,
You're gonna create a new list of vegetation to protect. Trees to protect.
Basically native, right, natives, right now, we have this category one,
Yeah, I'm not gonna say.
invasives, and then we have our native tree list. So you'd have now a native vegetation list, although I think vegetation is included in the Cat 1, right? Cat list. It's got
Well,
a Mexican petunia.
yes,
That's vegetation.
lists that say what is, a native plant
An
and
air
what are
potato,
not.
I think, is on the Cat 1 list, right? So that's vegetation.
Invasive,
Correct. Yeah, those are
not
invasive.
protection.
I guess my point is that there's already potentially, it includes both trees and vegetation. I'm pointing out to Rose, really. Do we
You mean on the
need?
invasive side?
Right.
I'm
but it's-
looking at the protection side, which is 18.
Right.
We have, ordinance that to indigenous vegetative communities.
Okay.
Does it list all the different vegetation that's in there?
I mean, there's a couple things, like hat racking. FPL came through our neighborhood and just decimated all the trees. Anything that's near a power line, they just cut everything down. We have one banyan tree, it's a V now.
Yes,
So what, I mean,
Is there a line going through there?
yeah, line's right down the middle, so the banyan is a standing V.
Thing about banyans is those aren't usually those kind of plant themselves, I think, but
I mean,
the
this is
problem
a-
is people plant trees underneath power lines.
I
do
understand,
it
but you have
constantly.
no,
Birds drop seeds.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
But
but if you're saying you can't cut them,
what's allowing them to, you're saying? or-
yeah,
Well,
FPL
it's-
comes in and
it's a
just
right-of-way.
decimates, I mean, they just.
I know, they
Yeah,
do.
their
They're rough.
maintenance is typically exempted, even in like the Mangrove Trimming and Preservation Act. So, I mean, my comment to that would be, well, reshape it and keep it trimmed properly so it doesn't get to that point.
And I think the reason to do the V allows the trees to continue to grow. If you something like this, they just grow right back up in the
I mean,
lines.
but I mean, so
like
FPL would be
Exempt.
exempt from that. And then 10% stone, and not mine, but we have many places that are 90% stone now.
Yeah, I didn't understand that one.
So
That's also what we're trying to avoid.
Is
so
that,
that's new construction or existing? I mean, most new puts grass in and
There's a place down by me that they just, it
416.
was a vegetated lot. They took out oaks and sable palms, built the house and put down grass, or rocks. There's no vegetation.
10, 416.
I mean, I don't disagree with it, but there are a lot of homes that are 90+% rock. And it's hotter,
416.
it's harder to
100%
maintain,
some
you
of
have
them,
to
yeah.
use, Roundup to weeds from coming through. So, I mean, I understand that, but there's a lot of properties that have a large number of rocks now.
A lot of putting it down too.
it's probably new construction. And then the vegetation protection, because I'm looking at what we were referring to, was really, in general during construction, cut and fill activities, land alteration, construction material storage, da-da-da-da. It was, prevent or the damage of vegetation, of existing native vegetation to the maximum extent possible. Especially where the native vegetation exists within required buffer zones. Then it was to be, if it was destroyed or receiving major damage, it should be replaced. So-
Parking lot stuff, this whole area in that 416, that 10-416 talks about internal landscaping. That's what you're discussing here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Starts by saying all parking areas must be internally landscaped to provide visual relief and cooling effects. Landscaped areas on the parking area perimeter or internal islands. So I don't understand. I don't see that it. I don't see where it actually just talks about the entire lot being traveled. Is that what that's talking about, Chad? Do you know that, Eric? portion?
I'm not familiar with the requirements as far as gravel. I can look into
It's
it.
about optional tree grates, you know, usually that's for parking areas, maybe utilized in parking areas for installation. But, I mean, wouldn't be a bad thing to add if it's not actually in there, that there's gotta be some minimal, I mean, that's not that difficult to do, Bill, right? I mean, to add, cars, you know, well, let me ask Chad this, is there anywhere, you know, does the ordinance touch the amount of your property that needs to be landscaped? Right now, is it if you wanted to do 100% gravel, you could do it?
I can look into it. I have to
Okay,
speak.
I know so much.
I don't believe that there's much that speaks to family resident landscaping. There's no tree requirements, for instance. Odd requirements.
Oh, but if we add single family, that all of this is gonna apply to single family, correct?
Yeah, or you pick a subset that you really like and draft it for that, yeah. I think drafting something new, single family, would probably be better than just adding single family as to the developmental order.
Because the buffer zones are different, lot lines are different. There's a lot of differences.
Yeah, and this DO, I mean, the whole developmental order is a very complex thing, which is why professionals get paid good money to read them over and comply with them on there. Drafting something that's a bit more easier on the eyes for the DO that's going to have a single family.
But you'd use portions that what we originally have, 75% or 50% native, get rid of exotics, the whole portions there, so it's just a matter of copying, pasting a lot of that. Yeah. So, how do we move forward on this?
What about the first section about misdemeanor and jail time? Can the city do that?
I don't have a gun. I don't have a jail.
I
Don't have-
understand that. I mean, so that would be getting the
A little reticent about
sheriff's
doing
department in to arrest people for an invasive plant?
These are examples. The first one's from Sanibel, the second one's from Marco Island. And
We
it's
don't have our own
whatever,
police force.
they're examples. They're examples of what could happen, but
What-
it is probably the
You're right, though.
primary thing.
The town, there's no one on town staff who can apprehend anybody, who can arrest anybody, who can put anybody in
Citizen
jail.
patrol.
Hey,
back
don't
you
have
at
the
guys,
it.
hey, let's
Back
not
at
get
citizen
caught up,
patrol.
you guys, don't get caught up in this. I think the point is there's gotta be a punitive measure right now, there isn't. So what's our normal fine structure for people that don't comply with ordinances? That's what should apply to this. Right, lighting ordinance, whatever it might be, or anything. Make sense?
Yes.
Or code compliance?
Right.
Yeah.
Our normal, I don't think we're gonna put a special, then for this, but yeah, there needs to be something punitive if you don't comply. I mean, first of all, you won't get your LDO approved, right? At least not your final. You don't comply with the ordinance. Is that how we treat people right now that don't?
Right, yeah, resubmit, ask for.
Oh, okay. What would be the measure if somebody came and planted a non, that would be the same thing? It would be just a non-invasive and invasive. The same as doing,
Right, so you send them a warning, please comply,
right, get rid of
amount
it,
of time to comply.
rid of it, or it's $25 a day,
educate and
yeah.
Get them to understand why it's important.
The process goes, and they have lots of time to solve this with the
Right,
town.
yes, I know, we know that from the thing stuff. So, I was gonna suggest that we actually, if we have to look at this closer, or we have, Chad, you had this in advance, I mean, these all seem to me to be extremely simple additions to the existing. What would take a little more time now is if we do, I thought we would just be able to put single family also.
Yeah, I can talk it over with planners, what they think is the best way forward, but my inclination personally would be to have something for single families that's, what's the trigger for requiring exotics to be removed? What's the minimum requirements for native vegetation? What's the limits for sod? Limits for things like rock? What's the design criteria for things like rock? Do we allow, plastic barriers where it basically becomes impermeable? I know it seems like an easy copy and paste, but I think we have to put some thought into it and come back with something for it.
Yeah, and then are these recommendations something that you'd consider for the existing, for the commercial and everything, just the updates and definitions? I mean, it seems like it's all.
It's y'all are to advise the town
Right.
council, so I would leave that to y'all to see what you like and you don't like. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, but if you want to, how you want to advise council is y'all's purview.
All right, well, I think that these probably need to be tightened up a little bit. So, for instance, I mean, I don't know if we can go ahead and vote on some of this stuff now, but first of all, to eliminate some of it. So as you had mentioned earlier, Rose, 12 and 13, some of these are reliant on earlier decisions and some aren't. So if we say, okay, we want section 2 here, which is basically we decide to say, okay, we're going to put in the Cat 1 list from the FLEPPC list as amended, and we would get rid of 13, 14. We could take out 13, 12, 13. Yeah, 12 and 13 are gone. I mean, should we go through this and actually decide if anybody has an objection to adding any of this, since we've just gone through it?
I'd need a copy.
I've been looking at the email.
Yeah, I forgot my phone.
I do that too.
Oh, okay, let's table it, I guess, and come back and dig in it closer, because for instance, we'd like to say, what, on the wording, I mean, I like the first one, the more flowery stuff on number 5, the intent and purpose, for example 1, versus example 2. I mean, so there's minor decisions here, I think, that need to be made, unless you have a reason not to support one of these recommendations.
I mean, a list of invasives, are we gonna have it fluid, or is it gonna be a list?
It's a hard list, that's gonna be an appendix, and it's as amended though, so
As amended, meaning?
meaning that if the FECCP amends the list, you're responsible for knowing that some weird plant, different new invasive was added.
So I would actually say I wouldn't put a list in the ordinance. I would just.
But people want to pick up an ordinance and say, how do I achieve what you want without having to go to a whole bunch of different places, I guess.
Maybe include the most common.
I'd say the 2019 category 1 list, and then if 5 years later, how often do they come up with a new list? Obviously, it's 2019.
Every couple of years, like 2-3 years.
2-3 years. I mean, do you just say we're going to update the appendix with the new list every time it comes out? I mean, I know that's a management, issue, but. Or do you say
Personally, I would say reference, category 1 invasive exotics as defined by the FLEPP are prohibited.
Okay, I mean, I'm not, I'm just thinking as a homeowner or whoever, a person, it's nice to say, okay, where's that at?
I mean, been FLEPPC and it gives it to you.
Google.
I know how to use the internet. Not everybody does.
I'm concerned about having a fluid list is an Augustine grass. It's an invasive plant. What if that makes it to the list? Grass.
Why are you saying it's invasive?
It's not native.
A native, but
So
it's not
native and
invasive.
exotic is different.
Not native, it's invasive. It'll take over other planting areas.
This is the Greg Fossum list, or why is it
No,
on the
I'm just saying certain things, if they get on the list, would make me concerned.
I don't like to plan around hypotheticals. I mean, I believe if it was invasive exotic, it'd already be on the list.
They change it. Means
This
that
is for
they,
new construction, so unless you did something like tore down your house and built a whole new one,
a new patio in, I have to tear out all my grass.
it's possible. That's
But-
the other option.
I
Number
think
three
that
is the
that's
other
kind of an
option, new
alarmist
construction, that's to be
comment. I don't
defined.
see,
What is new
you know,
construction?
St. Augustine's grass.
Have
being
you looked
added.
at the, I mean, take a look at the list.
I don't have, where is it?
It's, FLECC.
As common as St. Augustine's is, if it
.com.
was invasive, exotic, it would be on the list.
Political reason it's not on the list. It's an
And I
invasive.
don't like to plan around hypotheticals.
It's, I mean, it's just, it makes me concerned. It's not native, it's invasive, not on the list.
You're saying it's invasive. Why you keep saying it's invasive?
You ever have St. Augustine grass and take care of it? It grows and invades other areas and chokes out other plants.
Is it on the list? I think what you're trying to get is it is
Not on the list now, I'm
That's all.
concerned, what if it gets on the
But
list?
if it gets on the list, then it would be updated every time there's something new, right?
It's for new construction, so.
Or, but he said if he decides to pull a, you know, land development order and there's a hook in there that says, hey, how's our opportunity for you to get rid of your invasives? Well, then you'd have to pull it all out. But, I mean, again, I think that's an extreme case if it's been around for a long, long, long time,
Yeah,
that
I mean,
grass, and it's not on the list.
There's a lot of condos with scaevola right now that was not on, there wasn't any list whenever it was planted there, and now it's there, and there's gonna be a lot of whining about requiring that to be taken out should they pull a permit. So, I mean, at this point, you know, that does happen.
Well, we have to decide as a group whether we want to put that, you know, on other LDOs or whether or not it's just completely new construction, right? I mean, that's another vote for the town council, not us. Let's face it, we don't make any decisions. Bring it to town and they would say, okay, well, there's two choices here. One is we like to do this to eliminate the invasives. Or option B is only on new construction. There's no backward looking at all and you can use invasives as long as you want here.
And I understand what you're saying that St. Augustine's grass does.
That's just one example. There's,
may
you
not
know,
meet
other
the-
plannings I may have that all of a sudden get on the list.
I would think though, you know, I'd leave it to the experts to define it, because I know things like frog fruit, you know, the perennial peanut grass, that is not considered invasive because it doesn't seed here. But it is spreading and they're looking at maybe putting on the invasive list, but it's like a 10, 20-year problem. It's not like people are gonna go overnight and just be changing the lists.
It's invaded by that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for the sake of time, we decided we weren't gonna accomplish everything here, but we made a heck of a jump, so thank you, Rose. You know, I'm gonna go on record here to give you the first member of the meeting award.
Yeah,
All right?
It's a lot of work.
Everybody's in favor for
I
that?
second that.
Okay, right on. That's not even hearing the rest of you guys yet. We know Rose has been struggling along with it, so, for next meeting, you need to, again, look at this closely, and we're gonna make recommendations that we can then give to staff.
To council.
Well, to give to council, but again, I mean, okay, we can do that. We won't, so what you're suggesting is we won't actually modify the ordinance and pass it
Again, you
along.
need to, yeah, the
Council
process
will
is
tell them what we're working on, and they'll say then, okay, go ahead and work on the ordinance.
advise council what I
Okay.
think is best for the marine resources of the town.
Okay, so that'll, we're gonna accomplish that next meeting, so that stays on. Next subject here is dark skies, and this will actually be a short one, because we're not actually, you didn't get the steering document from me, we're not gonna go in with both feet yet, because what we're gonna do actually is take another month here to do some potential damage control. You know, there's a lot of the projects that are going on here on the island. There's, maybe you've heard of them. There's a bunch of them. There's Times Square, obviously. There's Bayside Park. Bay Oaks is coming along the way. There's signs being put up, at the bridges. So my question is are the lighting standards? Because there's such, there's things I saw on the list like well lights. And I think those are
Uplights.
uplights, which are, I believe, against our ordinance. Any external light has to be full cut off, you know, shielded. So I know there's questions about, there's tree lights that were described, and, you know, I've gone to the spec sheets, and I don't know how they're being mounted. All this lighting, has anybody even looked at that, and did they actually give them our lighting ordinance to say this has to meet our lighting ordinance? You know, some of it is, passenger or walkways, you can't mount anything over 12 feet, things like that. Is that all taken into consideration? Also, I saw that there is a sole source for a dual light to be made. And the question is that for Bayside, right? Did you see that, Bill?
Actually, you know, I just picked up my book for Monday's.
Okay, yeah, I know that hasn't been
For
posted
some
yet.
reason, council's the last to know.
The question is where are those gonna be used? They appear to be used probably from the corridor, from Bayside Park to Times Square, and Times Square is obviously on the beach, so are we gonna be installed, you know, we just took 2 years to go through this whole thing. What's gonna be done down there, and has town council agreed on? I know they voted to move forward with Bayside Park. There's not a 100% plan yet available. I guess because there's still negotiation going on, but where do we stand on those types of issues? They had originally, I think the 90% plan for Times Square showed 2 sets of lights. It looked like they had 2 photometrics, amber and for 3K white. There's, I don't know how many, 40, 20, there's 11 LEDs going up in Bayside and Times Square. I didn't write the number down here, but actually 22 that'll circle, you know, all the walkways and things. So are those, and those are these Luso, I'm sorry, those are VSXs from Visionaire. Are those going to be, are those going to be installed for the same reasons that we talked about for and again, why move forward with dark skies if we're not following our own ordinance and we're actually not?
That's kind of another conversation. I do think that if you think the town ordinance, if something is going in these designs that does not conform to the town ordinance, I think letting staff know to look into it. Mm-hmm. If you think there's something that needs to be adjusted with the ordinance, that's something you would advise council.
Right.
You know that the 3 fully hooded ever street lights are down at the little crosswalk down there by Times Square. I went down the other night to look at it. Mm-hmm. You honestly can't tell the effect of the lights because every shop around there is like.
Winds is unbelievable. What's the one on the corner to the left?
It is so
unbelievable.
white
That
and
second
so bright.
story, all those lights are coming out, man. That's unbelievable,
It is,
actually.
and so I couldn't even really see the amber color on
it's like light trespass. I mean, that's in our ordinance too. So it's, but the actual, it was well lit. I mean, you've got,
I also know that people at the end of the street have complained that people don't feel safe on the street because it's dark.
What street?
On Old San Carlos, going down to people down at the bay end, the businesses. Mm-hmm. They complain that people don't come down to them because it's dark.
I'm guessing though that there's probably going to be a lighting plan to connect the 2 parks as part of this redevelopment downtown. So I'm guessing.
I know we're putting in lights where the sidewalks went in.
Right, those have been decided. Those are amber. Those are right. the lettered streets, I guess.
And I'll look into it because I do know also that we'd recommend that we don't mix light colors, especially on places where people are driving. Consider it safe.
Right.
There's my phone ringing.
So that's just a question. Who's driving the car? Where's the continuity? Where's the the design, and what's the purpose and like that. So just thought I'd bring that really up during this portion.
Are the lights permitted? Why don't they by the ordinance? I mean, but if they are permanent, they have to be.
Well, the plans aren't 100%, so they're not. I don't think it's permitted.
Once they are,
right.
They follow the ordinance.
They should, but I think everybody finds out that we don't follow the ordinance.
Well, that's
like
my
a
question.
Tree cutting ordinance.
If they don't follow the ordinance, why not?
I mean, we understand private citizens, but the town itself is the difference.
Well,
obviously.
If the town doesn't follow their own ordinance, we have a problem.
That is a problem. So I guess that's just out there. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't think there's any. I've been out of town for a couple of weeks, so I guess I gotta jump back in, but it shouldn't be our responsibility either, is my point.
There's no dark sky ordinance, so like you talked about the dual color lights on the
Yeah,
street.
but we have what is
There's
very
nothing
close
against it.
to, again, it was just unbelievable when I read this. I mean, it's all, has all the elements of a dark skies ordinance. I mean, for example, I think you brought up a question about the signs. The photo shows it being uplit. I mean, we have a sign, or, the lighting ordinance for our signs it has to be mounted above and directed down on the sign. So there's, again, no uplights. So, and I'm not against accent lighting and anything like that, but I think, maybe they need to be more creative. This Insight, who's the lighting contractor.
Maybe, Chad can, I'll bring that up Monday, if Chad is, here.
The concerns are the dual lighting.
So no,
Yeah, and if you're coming out from underneath the bridge and you're going down San Carlos, then all of a
That's
sudden now you're
one
white
issue.
light.
But the other is, if there's uplights in these park designs, it's forbidden in the ordinance.
With the dual lighting, our sea turtle ordinance, reviewing these, looking at the sea turtle ordinance, the applicability of the sea turtle ordinance is lights cannot be visible from the beach during sea turtle nesting season. So then you have a dual
direct,
lighting.
indirect, or cumulatively.
Right, so then you have a dual lighting program that switches on and off with the season. So how, I understand as from staff's perspective.
It's not approved. It's the same. That's the whole reason that we're having amber lights on Estero Boulevard, I think, because they shot down the light that the town.
Technically, the dual lights are not against the ordinance, like the uplights may be.
Right, so
Dual, against the ordinance, you're saying? But
I'm reviewing it according to the ordinance, and they say that, these lights are going to be amber turtle compliant during sea turtle season. It's going to be something else outside of sea turtle season, meets the ordinance. If you're against dual lighting systems for the same reason you're against dual lighting systems for the amber, then voice that concern to council.
I don't know
well, my
if
point
it's,
again
I don't
is-
know if it's that you're against it, but I am pretty sure FWC made it clear that they would never approve dual lighting.
it's not certified lighting. So
Well, the lighting during sea turtle season is certified amber.
the fixture's not, I think. That's the point.
Again,
Yeah,
I
it's not
fully
my
encourage
words.
you
It's
to,
not my words.
right, I fully encourage you to voice your concerns
Yeah,
on council.
but also I think just the continuity of the town. I mean, again, what do we, there's been made a decision, I suppose, for the rest of the island, even underneath the bridge and yeah, I guess that's something. We need to know a little bit more, I guess, right? Oh, let's move on to the rental boat propeller protectors.
All right.
Ranger Rob?
So you guys, I give you a big packet here. I made the very top page there that just says new ordinance proposal for City of Fort Myers Beach. That kind of sums up what I'm trying to do, as far as like what the ordinance would effectively say, why I think we need it, the purpose of the ordinance, like the time frame as to how long it would take to actually get this up and going, and then what it would mean for our area. And on the back, I have, and some like a few, a few arguments and things that I perceive that we might get from people. But anyway, so in the big packet, some of what you have there is emails that I had back and forth with a specific group that makes these propeller guards, a certain type of propeller guard. There's a few out there. And then I have articles, mainly here, I have information on human-related injuries with just propellers without guards, and then the rest is a lot of turtle information. But this goes into seagrass, it goes into protecting the seagrass, the manatees, the dolphins, all the creatures. I also have a lot of United States Coast Guard regulations for what they have said about human mortality and that. So essentially, I am trying to propose, what I would like the ordinance to effectively do, because our area is growing so rapidly with tourism and with people moving down and more boats on the water, more and more boats. And what I'm learning is there for a while, they would rely on these rental boats being told and taught before they're handed the keys where to go, how fast to run, and what to do. And when they first started, there's dates on, I don't have the dates memorized, but when they first started trying to do more education for rental boats, there was a big drop in human mortality getting hit or injured from the propellers. And after a while, it kind of leveled out and then went back to nobody caring, it seemed like. Nobody was pushing for it. So with our area as getting as populated as it is, and so many people are taking these boats out, we're losing seagrass, we're losing manatees left and right, and turtle mortality is rising because of propeller strikes. I think it would be a really cool way to start setting the stage for our area being extremely eco-friendly, is if we were to mandate all rental boats with an exposed propeller to be required to have a propeller guard on them. This is going to then cut down not only on maintenance so it does have some positives for the companies. The initial cost is the big thing I feel like we're going to get some feedback from, is the initial cost of putting these on the boats. But once they're on, you don't have to take them off unless there's there's different types of propeller guards. Some of the guards, there's a cage that you just take off the front so you can take the propeller on and off for maintenance. But it doesn't just protect the outside environment, it also protects the propeller itself. So it'll cut down on wear and tear on some of these boats. I mean, you look at any rental boats up and down, these propellers are destroyed. But the people that are renting these boats, frankly, either don't listen or don't care when they're told to stay in the channel, go certain speeds. It's time and time again, this Sun and Fun rental boats, the salty sand boats, they're cutting right across Matanzas Pass. Oh, yeah. And you can look at it from a drone or from the air and you just see the seagrass just dying out. We're down to about 5 to 10% of the seagrass left. And manatee mortality, we've lost over 1,000 manatees this year, which is more than the last 3 years. So I'm just trying to think of, we need to set the stage for something that is really going to stop some of this and start getting people to be more aware. And some of the things I think that companies will then start even, the companies that are mandated to do this, they're going to be then kicked in the butt to say, maybe we should start talking more about telling these people to stay in the channel, because if they go outside the channel, hit a rock, hit sand, and tear stuff up, it's going to bend the cage, which then is going to make them have to get a new cage. So it's going to kind of keep them even more conscious of stay in the channel, slow down in manatee zones and seagrass areas. I think it will have the initial setup is going to be an uphill battle, but once it's implemented, once it's going, the amount of benefits that this will have, not only for the companies that are mandated to do it with their pocketbook, but then also just the environmental impact, positives of what this could do, I think is absolutely incredible.
I mean, I have side scanning on my boat, so I can see all the lines in it. I hate to say it, most of the lines are from the Dolphin tour boats. Why? Yeah. How can I say that? Because they have 2 motors, and I can tell by the distance
where they're at.
So these are charter captains.
Yeah.
On charter boats doing, I think, the majority.
Yeah. I didn't want to include tour boats. I think they should be personally, but just because that's what they're going to come back is they're going to say, well, our captains are U.S. Coast Guard certified master class captains. But the reason I'm pushing on rental boats is because you know how you get a rental boat? You give them the cash, you show them your license.
Yeah, I mean, I see a ton of them going through.
I see what you're saying. I agree.
Grass flats.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. They don't know where the channel is. Like the CWA on the south end. I mean, they're just. I mean, it's not necessarily flat, but I know that it's below. It's mid tide, and I know that's only 3 feet or 2.5, and these big old mud trails are just cutting through the bottom. I mean,
The captains or from the rentals?
no, this rental boats. Oh, yeah, and it's usually, you know, I mean, it's pontoons and nobody's paying.
I know-
Guys just driving and.
I know there's no way we can get private owners,
Yeah,
there's
private
no way
owners
we can
do
get
it.
that.
I've seen as
I
well,
mean,
but
they do it
grand
too,
majority is,
but the majority is these rental boats. The rental boats are just,
they don't realize how shallow
right,
Estero Bay
They
is.
see
It
water, they
is
think they're
so
good.
shallow, yeah.
and so one of the, couple of things that, you know, have come up are, will it affect speed, will it affect performance, fuel efficiency, things like that. All that data and all the tests have already been done, all that, and essentially what it is in slow speed, minimum wake, you won't even notice it's there. When you get into the, you know, the cigar boats and that, then yeah, you're gonna have fuel efficiency things, but these pontoon boats aren't meant to go over 25. And unless you're going over 50, it doesn't show any differences.
What is the cost range per boat?
So per boat, depending on what type of guard you get, there's guards that are out there for $150, $200. The company that I've been talking to the most, depending on the size, is $300 to $600. So one of his quotes was for a fleet of 5 boats operating with 75 horsepower motors, probably be around $540 for each boat, totaling around $2,690 for 5 boats in a fleet.
For the
You said
cage,
540 I see, per boat.
But
Per
you also
boat.
have installation costs.
The installation, it can be done. It's if you look at them, it's essentially mounted. There's a circle. You got the propeller, you got the circle, and then you got the plate right above the propeller. It's mounted to that plate, and then there's a screen type. It's like not a thin mesh, but it's like a cage almost that goes then in front of that propeller. So all you do is you screw that in, and it's a one-time mount. Once it's on the boat, it never needs to come off except for that screen in front of the propeller.
I have personally installed those. It's over an hour. Plus you have to pull the boat out of the water.
It is, yeah.
So, I mean, so that's another expense. That's, you know, the question is, does the township have the ability to make such an ordinance? It is, most boats are federally regulated by the design of the motor and prop. You do go into non-township water. I don't know. I mean, can we regulate cars, planes, boats?
We do regulate cars, lanes, and boats.
Not by township.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I honestly don't know.
I mean, that's the first step, is legally I mean, I don't disagree with it. I think for education, but I hate to say it to people who will come to your thing, aren't the pontoon boat beer drinking type people.
Sure they are.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the education, there's, I have pages here, the education has proved to be ineffective now.
Yeah,
It's,
I see it all the time.
yeah.
Right.
So prevention is key. That'll help. You're still gonna get the skeg scarring of the grass with that. If you hit a manatee with your motor at 25 miles an hour, it's still gonna hurt.
Well, it is gonna hurt, but I also have statistics here, blunt force trauma versus bladed trauma. And blunt force trauma under a certain mile per hour isn't going to be a fatal injury for the wildlife. So I looked into that as well.
Yeah.
As far as the prop scarring, cutting of the root systems is what does it. But this is going to put a little bit, we were just talking about, it's going to put a couple inches or so below the actual blade. So you're going to be bumping and realize you're bumping before that blade's doing the damage. So it's going to give you more time to back off.
The pontoon boats only know they're bumping when they're.
Oh, yeah, and that's a good point.
That's true, I've seen
We're
it.
slowing
I can't
down,
tell you how
trying to
many
go
times I've
faster.
seen them. You know, I've watched it, I'm just like, oh man, I hope they're holding on, because they're gonna come to an abrupt
Yeah.
stop,
Yeah.
sure enough. Bam.
I mean, I have a lot. This is, like I said, this is just kind of a fraction of the research and the communications I've been having with companies, FWC, Eve. I was talking with Eve with Turtle Time. I'm talking with the pod protectors. I'm talking with all slew of biologists in the area that are giving me information on types of trauma these animals endure. And the seagrass is just a fraction of what it is. My own personal thing is going with manatees and sea turtles. And because manatees is the whole reason I moved down, that's where I'm at. And
But there's a big human safety element.
Well,
there,
and
too.
that's, I think, a big angle that
For
I don't
rental
want people to
boats.
oversee. We just had somebody get hit down by pink shell. A young lady lost her life at Lani Kai last year, you know, so I mean, it's all kinds of statistics around it that, other than the initial cost and the time of setup, because once it's on, then you don't have to take it out of the water to maintain it other than normal.
Dr.
Lot-
Fossum, we do regulate, personal watercraft rental, whatever that's worth.
Equipment on them or the actual, I mean, do you mandate that they have to have certain,
Safety features. I know we did require certain safety equipment, whether or not that was just
it's Coast Guard?
redundant with regulations that already exist.
I mean, that's, I think, throughout the
Whether or
township
not
as a
you can
lawyer,
rent out of the jurisdiction.
before we do a whole bunch of work on, I think it's a needed thing, but before we do a lot of work and the
Well, no,
lawyers
I
say,
agree 100%. Can we actually affect it, you know,
yeah, can we,
change, yeah, it's illegal. There's a lot of reading here too, obviously. You brought, you know, we didn't have this advanced, so I'd like to look through it all, but,
And I can get more.
yeah,
like this
my
is just a
concern was,
total-
you know, you had shot me a photo that you picked up on the web, I think, of a guard.
Oh, yeah.
Percent of that? But my concern was that, you know, it's large like this, the propeller's inside, I felt like it, you know, it was gonna actually dig deeper, almost like, as I mentioned Rob earlier, almost like, you know, you can buy those hose that are basically just half circles now instead of the old type of hoe, you know, it's.
Right, I use them a Lupo, and they're
Loophole,
excellent. at
exactly, and I feel like,
tearing
man,
up
that
roots,
thing
yeah.
is gonna just,
but
Gouge it out.
you know, you mentioned that a front guard and, you know, maybe you'd end up feeling it, but like you said, with a rental boat,
It's
I'm
hard
not
to
sure.
tell,
And the
too.
problem we have is it's mud, you know, it's not always,
Well, one of the big things I have for like, even though you're right, it could cause a little more damage with the seagrass. The evidence doesn't show that, but it also then it does start a new line. So the education they're doing now is just inefficient, and it's give me the keys, I'm gonna go.
right, sure.
So what I feel like it would do for the rental companies then, because it's so time ineffective to take it out of the boat and maintain it, if it's damaged, or to take it on and off and redo it, it's gonna put it into these companies, and they're gonna say, well, heck, we gotta start really drilling it into these guys more than we have been, because if they damage this cage, it's gonna damage the prop more, it's gonna do, so there is stuff with that, but
You
it's
have to
gonna,
pay for it, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, they always put you on the hook for prop damage.
and if they damage the prop, then they make the customer pay for it.
Oh, yeah.
Which is what they already have in the thing. You damage the boat, the prop, you pay for it.
one of
So,
the pontoon owners did tell me that one of their highest profit centers is replacing props.
yeah,
It's a profit
yeah.
center, it's
Yeah.
not a loss center,
Right, they charge the customer, yeah, yeah.
yep.
more
And
than what it costs for a new prop.
this'll.
What is the cost of a new prop compared to the cost of the cage? I know like aluminum props and they're cheaper, right?
Cheaper, yeah. I can't remember what I paid for my stainless.
We're on well, the stainless, I haven't bought a new prop in a while, I think $100 for an aluminum, small motor aluminum.
Sounds right, about maybe 100, 150, yeah,
The stainless is 2.5, 3 times that price.
right, yeah.
I think that, you know, I mean,
$600.
probably some pushback, some people are gonna look at this and go, oh, this is a way to protect my prop, and they say, well, why am I using a, you know, $500 device to protect a $100 device?
But that's
Yeah.
where then it comes into the ecological side.
Well, see, I think you
Yeah,
have,
but I think they all use
I think you have
stainless.
3 different things you're going for, and I would not discount the
Aluminum
health,
bend
because
is too easy. That's
we've
the
had
problem.
someone die by falling off a boat a couple times in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a woman that got hit. I don't know if she died this summer, I think.
That pink shell, no, I think it
Pink
just
shell.
hurt her leg.
You know it's against the law to dangle your legs over a moving boat?
The bow ride, of course.
Bow
it is.
ride,
Oh,
yeah, but you see that on everything, all the
Yeah,
boats.
I mean,
It's
so,
illegal to drink and drive your boat too.
that's how, I didn't realize you get your foot stuck in the water and you're in the prop.
Sucked right in, yeah. But that's the thing, you got a propeller guard on, then instead of a lost head, you got a concussion. You know, that's where that blunt force trauma comes in. And that's what we're seeing with sea turtles, with dolphins and manatees, is that these boats are supposed to be going slow speed already. But then when you do start talking about getting hit, whether it's any type of animal, human included, the mortality rate significantly changes then. You got these animals that are then getting bruised instead of killed. And it's a big, big change.
Okay, I'm gonna, oh, good.
What do you see enforcement looking like?
I would see enforcement essentially being whether it's beach patrol or whoever would enforce, because I guess we got to look into how we enforce it, and then that determines who would enforce it. Accurate?
Code enforcement? Would it be our harbor master? What do you do? Go and inspect, have them tilt it up and say you got, you
Right,
know?
are we enforcing it at the marinas themselves?
I would say
Yeah.
so, because you can't pull over a rental, they're not gonna know or care. But I'd say once this would go into effect, like the time frame I have on there is 6 months to a year of where, okay, so we know where the rental boats are coming from, we know the marinas, we know exactly where they would be. So in the morning or in the afternoon, before they get those boats going out, they have the whole fleet there. I mean, they tilt up the motor. All you got to do is just drive past, and if you see one without a cage on it, hey, you can't let that boat go out.
There's a significant number of boats, rental
They
boats
don't
that
apply.
are not Fort Myers Beach based.
Right.
I
One of the,
understand.
one I see that's a voice.
Salty
offender
Sam's is
not
rough,
on-
and I know we
yeah.
can't touch that.
Salty Sam's is a township.
No,
No,
No?
no.
Coast
Just to
Island.
the, township stops right at the end of the
Bridge to bridge, yeah.
Well, and this is, and it, having built off that, this is one of those things like the lighting ordinance that it's like, this is unprecedented. I don't see something like this around other than like outside of Crystal River type areas. But we're going to be setting an example of how much we care, and then other places can start saying, Fort Myers Beach did it, and this is how they did it. So I really feel like it's a really good leading by example situation where it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be fun, we'll get, you know, kickback from it, but positives of this, I just think are just, and I wasn't trying to be biased like saying that, but it's like, I don't see negatives other than the money. But once that money is put out there, it's going to save the company's money, it'll save
I mean, they
lawsuits, it'll
charge
save-
$300
it'll
to
save
$600 for a half a day,
Yeah,
so
right, they're
that's
fine.
just, I think
Yeah.
the money is,
I mean, a kayak's $2,000 now, so you can pay for 10 of the, you know. It'll save lives. Like at the end of the day, like
So-
that's really good to say.
so we have 5 marinas
I don't know how many. I know.
So, yeah.
that rent boats. Is there anyone else that rents boats
I didn't.
on Fort Myers Beach?
I didn't look into that specifically. I know there's like in our area. There's Pink Shell. Then you got Snug
Moss?
Harbor you got Moss.
Yeah, there's hotels that rent
There's
boats
hotels
too.
that rent
You have
boats. Yeah.
Snook Bite, you have Fishtail, that's 5. And
And then the hotels that rent the boats. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot.
Shell does rent them?
Pink Shell does through Holiday Water Sports. Pink Shell itself does not have any boats that they go out.
Have you gauged the acceptance of such an ordinance with?
I'll say with some of the workers, they think it's a great idea. With some of the ownership, they were a little hesitant to talk about it.
Right.
Well, you know, there's some tricks. So you'd also have to then certify what's an acceptable cage.
Yeah.
Is there a
Well,
level,
and that's-
is there
and
any
that's the
kind of
thing.
standards for that at all?
There's a whole bunch of different designs out there. And it would, if we did the ordinance, we would have to together say these would be the acceptable ones, or just make it as if you're trying and putting something on there, like, I don't know how strict we want to be with it. I feel like personally, if we are doing it, we ought to go all in for the best protection for the wildlife.
All right, some direction here for the sake of time. Why don't we, we'll leave this on the agenda for next meeting. In the meantime, we'll check the laws to see if we, I mean, again, if we're just not wasting our breath, hopefully not. 2, we'll read up, Rob brought a whole bunch of stuff I'd like to read actually, in preparation for it. And the next meeting, we can raise a question again, and hopefully I have talked to, read up, did a little more research and maybe talk to some people about it. And then we'll be prepared to talk about it again with 2 more members. Sound good?
Yep.
So, okay.
Is there any other information you guys would like me to bring for next time to be ready, other than obviously what you can't know what you're gonna ask Ben, but
No, if
anything
there
I
was, you had done some other research on the letters here, but if were there particular websites that were real helpful?
I can share those.
Yeah, maybe
I'll get
send those
with
to, a list of those to Chad, and then we can just boom, boom, boom,
Okay.
boom, and then we can do those,
you.
so.
Sounds good.
Good? All right, so,
And then insurance, like if that was an insurance benefit to put those on?
oh, interesting, yeah.
That's a
one,
good point.
Rose. Yeah. Thanks, Benny.
The exit protects it.
Now it's about features and benefits, it's about benefits. Good. Okay, Last item on the list here, at least for subject matter, is marinas and boat pump outs. And Doc Fossum brought us a steering document
It's
here.
very preliminary, and I just got some more stuff from Rose, and I guess Jennifer. So did not incorporate this into it, so all I would say is, let's not discuss it, just talk about it, and let's send Chad, then to me, any revisions or changes that you.
There's human waste disposal.
Right, so,
So, just real quick, I sent everyone, state records on all of the permitted marinas, or I shouldn't say all,
Yeah, that's right, I did.
handful of permitted marinas. Anybody have a chance to look at that?
I did. It's kind of, it had correspondence between Depp
Right.
and them, and
So what's usually interesting in reading those is the latest permit that was issued, which will tell you how many boats they can have, whether or not they can have liveaboards in there, whether or not they can have a pump out facility, et cetera. So what they're allowed, what they're authorized to do.
sort of latest permit is in there, you're saying?
Yeah, so you'll
Okay.
find in there, you'll find a permit, and you can also find what's usually interesting is compliance inspection reports.
Mhm.
You can see who's in compliance, not, who may or may not be.
I saw one of those, actually.
Then Dr. Fossum, on this one, so this is a technical thing, so it would be enterococci, not E. coli for salt water. And I would not refer to Estero Bay as a sterile bay. We have a lot of inputs from,
my voice dictated that, and Estero Bay, I thought I caught them all.
And don't write me a prescription, using voice.
Well, some people should be sterilized.
What did you give me? Hey, what should it say, did you say?
I guess Estero Bay, not,
Oh, I see.
Sterile
Bay.
bay.
Ah, gotcha.
I think, that's another, to that point, I think we have to remember we're kind of at the receiving end of nutrients and waste from several different inputs. So, there's only so much we can do, but to your point, there is something we can.
There's been water quality sampling been done for the last several years, and that we had one of the public comment guys come in saying he wanted that report. It's been hidden from him.
Right.
Lee County, it's on
So
Lee
that-
County.
yeah,
site.
I just would like to see that, so we get an idea of the magnitude of the problem. I mean,
Right.
if it's,
We're not sampling for enterococci right now. We're only sampling for nutrients.
Was that just a water sampling? Because the Water Atlas by CHNEP, they're like a collector of all kinds of samples.
Right, so Lee County Lab is sampling for enterococci at several locations along the island. If you go to Lee County Environmental Lab, they have drill down and look at different things that they're sampling for, different sampling sites. Okay. As well as on the front, some on the Gulf side.
results are just, there's,
Go if you search on CHNEP, CHNEP Water Atlas, it has an interactive map that gives you samples from a lot of different institutions.
what was that again?
CHNEP, CHNEP.
Harbor,
Coastland and Heartlands National Estuary Partnership.
right.
Like a clearinghouse, that's what you're saying, right? Of
Yeah,
all
and they
data they
call it the
collected
Water
all.
Atlas, and they have a wealth of information.
Got that's the problem. The other problem is if somebody dumps, no event, and it's intermittent, I would say. That's an issue, and I thought we had talked about we called it the blue pill at the time, but I looked it up a little bit, and it's you can find it's biodegradable. It's a fluorescent dye. It's EPA standard. It's made just for holding tanks, and it's a fluorescent. As anthane is the actual dye. But I was thinking, the mooring field, that's out of our purview. But these marinas that aren't part of the mooring field, it'd be interesting to actually ask them to require liveaboards, or even anybody, I suppose, dock there, whatever we decide on, to put these in their tanks. And then, obviously if they dump, you get this fluorescent, again, it's a safe, EPA safe product, but it's a dye to say, hey, this guy just dumped, or he's got a leaky, that's the other issue, is leaking holding tanks. And then actually, we could even go to ACC and ask them that when you come to the mooring field and they check in, you give them this particular dose is 3 tablets, at roughly 33 cents to throw in their holding tanks. Now, as I thought about it, I thought, well, the good boaters who probably follow the rules and have have good holding tanks will drop them in there no problem. It's the ones that don't ignore it or whatever. They may not even find their way into their tanks. Do you give it to as part of the pump out? After you pump it out, you say, hey, throwing 3 tablets in here. Do you have a problem with that, or that's a requirement of the pump out? That's one way potentially to identify, but.
Like you said, the people who are going and getting pumped out are probably not the ones you really need tablets in.
Right, because they're just pumping themselves out, right? But
How do you enforce that?
There's jurisdictional issues and there's complexities, and one is, I understand it's the sheriff or.
Well, the big ones are, if you're sitting in a marina and, one of these marinas and you got this yellow dye, it's almost, I think the neighbors are gonna sink the guy.
How do you know?
We'll leave it to the vigilantes.
How do you know if the marinas, or say for instance, there's something requiring marinas, boards or whatever to have the fluorescents? How do you know the fluorescents are in there?
They're actually being deposited into the tanks, you're saying? Right,
Need a tank inspector.
That's what I'm getting to. You see where I'm getting to?
But also, yeah, no thanks. But also, even if you're testing for E. cocci, what does that mean? How are you going to who are you going to point the finger at there? Yep. That's even further. That could be coming from, a toilet up in Mullet Creek or something. Those are some of the things we have to overcome if we want to somehow manage this a little better.
When they go to rent a slip at a marina, they offer the pump outs?
Depends if they have a pump out or not.
Shell does.
They offer, do they specifically say, hey?
Specifically say
Yeah.
they have to do
Okay.
it through them?
Oh, no, they don't say they have to. They
It's
just say we
available.
have this.
Right.
They have it for pull-up boats too. But if you're staying at Pink Shell one night, they go over a list of the amenities, and that's one of the amenities.
For me, I can just pull up the fishtail and tell them I want to pump it out, and boom, give them $5 and that's it.
What if it's just something
Personal
where
fight.
we just ask marinas, instead of going through like a legal thing with it, just ask marinas, say, hey, would you mind if you have a boat stay there for more than 5 days? Would you be willing to just say, hey, put one of these tablets in your boat?
I was going on the side of maybe free pump outs and more education, multi-phase.
Just kind of get a grasp on, I like, obviously, education, I'm always with that, but it's like, just to get a grasp on how these marinas would comply with something like that, and saying, look, we just want to see what's going on here. We got water quality issues. You're a marina that is involved with the health of the water. Would you be willing to just at least ask your tenants that are here for more than 5 days if they would be willing to put a tablet in there? One, it might be a positive thing for the marina, and then two, it would just, maybe some of these people don't know they have a leak that they're going to. Pink Shell's not a cheap marina to stay at, and I don't foresee a lot of our locals that are staying there saying no to something like that. They would want to know if their boat's leaking. So you're right, we can't go to a lot of the problem boats that would have an issue anyway, but I think the people staying at these marinas would have no problem if we just asked them to do it.
Yeah, there are two aspects to this. One is the people at dump. I mean, again, that's gonna be a challenge. Anyway, you look at it, I think, but then there's also the leaking tanks, leaking tanks. So it would be a huge benefit to notify somebody. I mean, I'm sure they'd appreciate it.
Yeah, if we supplied the tablets to the marinas, I'm sure people would love it, you know?
Expensive. And as far as, I think, the free pump outs, didn't we discuss that already? I thought there was a minimum $5 for some strange reason.
It's part of the grant.
Be part of the grant, they have to,
I think it's a maximum, not a minimum.
what it is? Okay.
I
Huh.
think it's a maximum, they have to, maximum of $5, so.
That's an Austin Chelsea question.
We could find that out.
Yeah,
You
a
can
lot
go-
of this gets, you're
You
kind
can go
of,
to any of the, you can go to any of the marinas either. You can go to your,
but you're kind of overlapping a lot with the Anchorage Committee.
no, the Anchorage, I mean,
Our boats
we
not
have
anchored.
our marching order and basically the ACC is simply the mooring field. That's it. I mean, it doesn't involve everything to do with boats.
Yeah.
It's the marine environment is our neck of the woods, so.
One thing they have is Austin, the harbor master, who knows more about what goes on
Sure.
beyond
No,
outside.
I
the
agree.
mooring
He's a fantastic guy and a resource and everything else, but I mean, yeah, we would involve them for sure. I think before doing anything here, especially with this. Yeah, I think as far as, they get involved maybe with the marinas, but that's not what the ACC doesn't. I think they don't, not their venue at all. I mean, I've never heard of anything come on that. Where does that leave us?
Well, give me suggestions, I'll make modifications, look at this document here,
Okay.
and
Excellent. Thanks, Doc. Nice steering document. Steering document. All right, let's go to the members, our Good Citizen Award,
That joke's not gonna make the final.
AKA the Murphy. Anybody have any Murphys?
We still have Jennifer's the little boy with the Halloween costume.
He's coming. He should be in the newspaper.
But then we had yours.
And then I have one for the pest control people that got garbage. out
Dynamic
of the
pest
canal.
control, litter in the canal
Yes.
from Rose. I got him in the bank here. I got a
Okay,
bank
so
account.
then I was like, my question was, can we ever do more than one per month? Rather than getting backlog, because now there's all these people that are coming down and there's a lot of people. There was a sand dollar one too out
Right,
there.
that's Rose's, but,
Yeah, so it's like, could we ever do more than one per month?
you've had problems getting one.
I know.
yeah, in
Well,
the past, actually.
Well, now
we're-
that we're like on.
Well, it sounds to
three.
me like we're already gonna be making a withdrawal from the bank, which leaves us one, so I think we'll be judicious about about them. When Bill was chair, he'd be like, God, has anybody got one? I got in the bank here. So does anybody have, a new one, a recent one, or are we gonna make a withdrawal here?
I don't want to make it withdrawal.
No, I'm,
Use one of the existing.
No,
right,
I'm
use
saying-
one of the existing.
From the bank is what I'm saying. I mean, I'm gonna make a motion that we use Rose's Dynamic Pest Control as the Murphy winner for this month.
I'll second
Oh, you
that.
gotta do the little kid who got the
already
He's
Halloween.
already in.
Yeah,
He's,
he's already
he's
in.
gonna
Okay,
show
okay.
up the
All right,
paper when Wendy
perfect.
does her
All right.
seagrass article. Should be,
So I second that.
Okay,
okay.
all right, so then I will send you the photo
Any
and
discussion?
whatever.
Oh, any objections?
I'm not a fan of that one personally, but I like Rose, so I'll say it's okay.
Okay, then we'll vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Rose. If you can get it to me by the 21st of the month, that would be terrific. And, Rob, you are, due, right, December 1st is sort of the date, so,
I had it all done, but now Bill has me thinking.
Was a
Well.
suggestion.
right. Well, we also have to, right prior to leaving this, I mean, we're basically done, but, is to repopulate our list here
Folded up into.
for the spotlight calendar. Well, right now, Rob is the last one for the 2021 calendar, and so for the 22 calendar, we have January through December blank. So does anybody want to do January? rotating through here. Anybody?
I haven't done one in a pretty long time, so I'll be happy to take.
Okay, yeah, you did March, I Rose did April, I did May. We skipped some in the summer, that's what happened. And then, so Greg did September, Rose did October, Wendy did November, Rob's doing December. So if we went back,
Keep this the same rotation?
we can, we have some new players here. Renee did one last year. So, so do you want to do January?
That's fine.
Right, Jen? February?
Take it.
Okay, Rose? March? Do March. April? Mary Rose?
If they're not here, they get
May is
volunteered.
Wendy. Is Wendy. Like June or July? June? June. Okay, roger that.
July,
July's good? Okay, good.
best for last.
Rob, and then we'll, should I put you down for August? Want to just keep going for the year?
Sure, that's fine.
In that same order, or do we want to,
Why don't you do the same order, and then someone, if they have vacation, they can say, I can't do it. Hop out.
okay, Jen, August, Rose, February, September, October. I'll do reminders too. You'll get a reminder by email on the 21st of the month prior. October, Rose, Steve. November then would be Mary, Rose, and Wendy. Okay, got it. Excellent, you guys rock. And members' items and reports. Bob, anything?
Working on that guy.
All right. Members' report. I've got one here. I have it here. Sawfish mural. I don't know where I ripped this out of. Fort Myers, October, Coastal Angler Magazine. So, seeking wall for endangered sawfish mural. Basically, there's an organization here, the Sawfish Conservation Society, sponsors a mural, and all they're looking for is artist Roger Pete will do a sawfish mural, or 2 or 3, as part of the Endangered Species Mural Project. We're looking for an uninterrupted and unobstructed wall that's 300 by 1,200 square feet. Good shape with a smooth surface and a flat ground in front of it in case a lift or scaffolding is needed. An area with good year-round pedestrian and or traffic exposure.
Wall's a pink shell I'd love to do, but
And
it's
it
not.
goes on, but I mean, it's really for thought. It's just,
Hey, Oaks.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of throwing it out there for you to think on.
It can't be private.
I would guess it could be private, absolutely, as long as, I mean, if
Would you
there was a
send me the-
big wall right near Times Square where you got all, this traffic, I'm sure they would love that.
If
I
you
mean,
could send me that information, I'd love to go past Bill Wachulis about it.
I will do that. You want to take a photo of it?
Yeah.
Take a photo of it. And,
Because we have a couple big walls.
maybe I'll put it, give it to our to our communications coordinator to put in an advisory. Say, does
Maybe even
anybody want one? Yeah, that's true. So I don't know if you have to prove that the artists, maybe the guy's not any good. Just paint it
is that
over.
with crayons or?
But I was just going to share that information. So, Doc, any members' reports?
Nothing new.
Nothing new?
My supplies, do you order those?
I had to put that onto,
Because it's kind of gonna be a problem. If it's gonna be a month before I can get the supplies.
you haven't heard anything from anyone?
And so honestly, really, I think and does the town have Prime through
Yeah, we
Amazon?
can order through Amazon.
Okay, so you can order through Amazon. So some of these things, they'll say like 10 left and they change items, they kind of,
I apologize, I thought that
through
was
the
being
system
taken
and-
care of, Jennifer.
and so I've had to, in the past month, have to pay for my own supplies again.
I have a box of things for you.
Okay, thank you.
So,
We're still on the same list? Has anything changed?
Yeah, because some of those things don't exist anymore on there, or the fluctuation and the prices change, so I don't need everything on the list, I just need on the list.
Okay, Rose, anything?
Just the cigarette canisters in Times Square, and then to go with her, talking about the Shrimp Festival.
Oh, thank you. I forgot about the Shrimp Festival. So yes, we will be doing the Shrimp Festival. The pop-up will be doing the Shrimp Festival. They are asking for a donation. They said it could, I think he said 200, but they can negotiate that down. Would definitely need all hands on board for that because it's going to be 2 days, I believe, and it's going to be from 9 o'clock until 4 o'clock, and then I think 5 o'clock on Saturday, 4 o'clock on Sunday. So if you're all interested, but I'll need to know if I'm going to have help.
In that expo area and everything?
Right.
Oh,
And then I'll have, I'm sure I'll have other organizations like the Fort Myers Beach Community Foundation. I'm sure I'll have maybe some people from Pro and Diego Bay. I'll reach out to everyone, and then that way but I'll need a Marine Resource Task Force person to create the booth shifts.
Just another thought, we have done a float in a parade in the past.
We should do a float.
Have a big Polynesian sailboat that'll be done by that time. We can put on a trailer.
What we've done in the past is I got a trailer from somebody. We built the frame. We have 4 4x8 sheets of plywood that we get together and paint scenes on it. I still have the panels, and actually the painting party is pretty fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
How much is it to enter the boat?
$25, I think.
Really?
Cheaper than having a booth.
There's-
It's a short thing. It's not like days.
Right.
You're wandering around, you walk by and you can hand things out. And
But
last time
educational.
we had Mary Rose in a turtle outfit. The back of Steve's trucks had the turtle tape out. It was pretty.
That's taped.
pretty
and
dorky.
Well,
stakes.
are we interested in doing the boat parade?
That'd be kind of fun.
I consider I may be in a different parade, a different float. Personally, is my problem. Is the sort of float leader, but maybe not. So that's why I didn't float it out there yet. But I have been thinking about it. I got a million of them, Bill.
You need a driver, right? Someone to drive.
I already
and then
have a
there's
dent
few
in my
people-
tailgate. I can put another one in there.
His brand new truck. He broke it in.
That's right, a little dent.
Oh, man.
Drive around with a trailer with your tailgate
Tailgate
down.
down. Oh.
Then who's ever in the float parade cannot also be at the booth because it's gonna be a
They'd have to sign
same
up for
time
later.
frame. So it'd be lots of us. And
Right.
With
Could you make a schedule for because I could be there Sunday, but would it be like 2-hour blocks? Could you make like a schedule that we could sign up
Well,
for?
first I wanted to know whether or not you are all in, or whether or not you're interested in having the pop-up at the shrimp parade.
I think it's a
Yeah,
good
Because then we
opportunity.
would
we can find somebody to make the donation, I'm sure.
We have a
Can work on
budget
that.
too that we
Oh,
could
that's
draw
true.
from.
We can use that for that?
I'm sure I could probably get him down to $100.
I think so,
Because he was really, interested in
Kiwanis.
having us.
Kiwanis?
Yes. If we are okay with it, can I go ahead and
Yeah,
start
I'd say
planning
yeah.
for it? Putting
I'll
out
be able
letters?
to help, yes.
Okay. Awesome.
I may have other responsibilities. That's typically when I get the grandkids that way.
It can work.
I don't think you want a
Not at the
6-year-old and a 10-year-old.
No, not,
They don't work too hard.
not allowed.
So are you interested in trying to get a parade float together?
I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's on the table here, yeah. I mean, I don't have to, I would help with it, obviously, and everything. I just may not fight in it.
I've
Hang on.
never been in a parade.
It's a real friends and family thing because we have
Oh, it's a great time.
some people in the float and most people walking around.
Walking around, got our Murph shirts
It's a good place
this
to hand
time.
out stuff.